Welcome to the Perfect Pairing Podcast. The cigar of the week this week is the CLE Corojo Robusto.
But before we get to that, if you don't already know us, my name is Chris, and I am the whiskey expert, but the cigar noob.
And I'm Adam, and I'm the cigar expert, but the whiskey noob.
And as Adam just unsheathed this cigar, let me do it now. Today,
Nice.
we are finding the perfect pairing for this CLE Corojo Robusto cigar. And we've got three very wildly different pairings lined up, I would say. But this is one of those where they're all very different, but I feel like they each could bring something really nice to the party. So I'm really interested to see which one does.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I got to be honest with everybody out there. I've had several of these, but not in a long time. I've had like one recently. But I've had several of these, like, over my cigar smoking career, if you will. But in terms of the pairings we're staring at, one, I don't know them very well. So that's part of it for sure. But Corojos have been versatile for us. They've been all over the spectrum. So I'm kind of going into this almost feeling like I'm going in blind. Like, you know what? I'm just gonna go with it and be like one of the listeners, and I'm just gonna smoke the cigar and drink the whiskey and tell Chris that it doesn't taste like grandma's shoe or some asteroid that came from Venus in 1792. But, like, yeah.
You're just jealous because you didn't get to taste the asteroid. That's all I'm going to say. All right, let me get lit up here, and then I'm going to do our trivia, I promise.
No, that works. For those of you that don't know, a little background on CLE, we have covered a decent bit of their brand already. We've had the Asylum on there, which is also owned by Christian Aroa. So this is going kind of all the way back, like Christian Aroa. If you weren't in the podcast where we mentioned the trivia question with Camacho, the Aroa family, because that was an Aladino question as well, the Aroa family has been in the cigar industry a long time. Julio Aroa, if I'm getting my J's right, Julio Aroa is the dad who started Camacho. Christian and Justo were underneath him, and they kind of learned. Christian was heavily involved in the Camacho brand and then started CLE, as well as the Aroa brand. Geez. CLE and Aroa, and now they also own Asylum. So he has those three under his umbrella, and then Justo has Aladino under his umbrella. So that's kind of the whole background of the family. So CLE is in the Christian Aroa family of brands with Aroa Cigars, CLE, and Asylum.
And let me tell you something, dude. I'm going to save this for the review, but so far, this cigar is right in my wheelhouse. Wow. Okay, I do have to do the trivia first. So today's trivia, for all you whiskey lovers out there, is one of the whiskeys that we are drinking today is known as a sweet mash. What does it mean for a whiskey to be a sweet mash? That's the trivia.
I'm just going to be honest with everybody out there. I have no idea.
Yeah, it is a very confusing term that honestly I did not encounter for a long time. Like, it's very prominent and exists a lot in the industry. You just don't hear a lot about it. So that's why I thought it'd be a really good trivia, because it's a little bit confusing of a term that you don't see super often.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, when I hear sweet mash, I'm like, okay, cool. It'll have a little sweetness to it.
Right.
That's about it.
100%. That's exactly what it sounds like, right? Now, for my noob review of this CLE Corojo Robusto, this is right in my wheelhouse. This is my flavor palette. It's got the perfect balance of the spice with like the dark sweet. Right now, it totally reminds me of a molasses cookie. If you've ever had a molasses cookie, that's the only note that I can really say this is reminding me of. It's that. And it's too specific for Adam.
Yeah, that was way too specific for me. I've definitely never had a molasses cookie, but what I can tell you...
Whoa. We're not letting that slide. You've never had a molasses cookie before?
No.
Dude, come on. You gotta have one. They're
Where do
amazing.
you buy it?
I have
don't
no
even-
idea. Anywhere that sells like prepackaged cookies, they're fantastic. It's like,
Okay.
I mean, I think they use molasses instead of sugar, maybe or something, but they're like extra bold sweet or dark sweet. Think brown sugar, but times 10 because brown sugar is sugar with molasses added to it. So,
Interesting. All right. Well, fair enough. I guess I got to try it. But anyways, what I was going to say is for those of you out there that are a part of the Perfect Pairing Club and you received this cigar in your August pack, you can also be excited because this is, I believe, maybe the third Puro that we've had in the lineup for the cigars of the week. This is a Honduran Puro, so it's a Honduran Corojo, and then it's got Honduran or wrapper, and then a Honduran filler and binder as well. So it's Honduran all the way through, which, if you know anything about Christian Aroa, he knows Honduran tobacco, goes to Honduras all the time. I mean, it's probably like half of his residence there. So that is this cigar. If you're smoking this and you like it, what I would recommend is looking up some more Honduran cigars.
I'm going to introduce our first pairing, and I really want to give you a moment to dig into it because it's nice.
I was wondering what happened with your face there. Hold on. Because you were like looking at me and you were like, whoa. And then I was like, dude, you know what a Puro means, you idiot. We've talked about this.
Dude, I was off in my own world. I wasn't hearing none of that. I was like, I know what a Puro
is. For those
is.
of you on the audio version, he snuck ahead and had the first pairing, and his face went like, oh my gosh, that's super interesting. And I was like, dude, Chris, you're not that bad, man. You know what a Puro is. Like, we've talked about this several times, even off the podcast. Like, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and pour. You talk, blah, blah, blah.
I had every good intention of listening, and then I puffed the cigar, and I was like, whoa, what just happened? So I got off track a little bit. Our first pairing for today is Virginia Distillery Company's American Single Malt Whiskey. This is their Cabernet Cask finish. So we've had on here before, I believe both the port and the cider cask finishes, two different finishes. So this is Cabernet cask, which means they're taking their single malt, and then they are finishing it in a cask that once held Cabernet wine. That'd probably be a good trivia because I haven't really talked about what am I meaning when I say this finish. So maybe it'll be trivia in the future, but for those who are here right now, when I'm saying it's finished in blank, I mean they take a barrel that once held whatever that blank is, in this case Cabernet, and then they put their whiskey in it. And that oak, or usually oak, still has some of that Cabernet in it. And so then some of that flavor transfers to the whiskey. But it's a way to do it without just tasting like it's mixed with Cabernet. So it gives it nice, delicate, like more delicate notes than you get if you were to do a mixture like that. And so this one is finished in a Cabernet cask, which means you're going to get those winey notes, especially with the malt. You're going to see some of that finish really come through. Malts work really well with finishes, and they really allow some of that play of the complexity in the notes. So some of that wine comes through. You still get some of that maltiness, a little bit of that granola taste. And when you pair it with the cigar, something confusing happens with the cigar that I don't 100% have my finger on yet. All I know is it was extremely prominent. When I took that first puff, I was like, whoa, something just happened.
All right, I'm going to go slightly Adam, slightly Chris. It's a half and half here, okay?
Ooh, all right. I like it.
Dark cherry mixed with Fig Newtons.
Ooh. I like that. I like that because, okay, so I need to confirm. I need to take a drink and figure that out. But I was leaning towards like the wine finish, but with a little bit of like a change to it. And I think it's that cherry. I think that might be what it is. I'm gonna take another sip here.
Well, in my opinion, going away from I guess what I just said is when you go one, I'm gonna start off right off the bat. This is a antagonistic pairing.
Yes.
I think I have not noticed anything happen to the Virginia Distillery American Single Malt Cabernet Cask here. The
100%.
CLE Corojo is changing in a great way. I think it's highlighting the Cabernet side of the whiskey, but it's bringing out also the Corojo. And I think maybe that's where you may be seeing a little difference. That spice is staying. It's
Mm-hmm.
not being messed with, but the undertones are becoming cherry. Does that make sense?
100%. 100%. It's like you still get a little bit of like, it's almost like salted cherry or something. Like it has that zing. And I think that's the Corojo spice coming through with the cherry. Because I was going to say, just using my like normal whiskey tasting notes, more of like a sour fruit. And I think what I was calling the sour would be the spiciness of the Corojo, if I had to guess.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. But I totally agree with you on the antagonistic, by the way. You took the words right out of my mouth. In a really good way, by the way, because the American single malt still has a lot of flavor and a lot of body, and it really hasn't backed down to that Corojo at all. And then the Corojo is accentuated with the spice and the fruit. And so it's one of those antagonistic pairings where, like we always say, these exist on a spectrum. Sometimes antagonistic is like, well, now one is so elevated that the other one is boring. In this case, I would say the whiskey just hasn't changed. It's staying itself, which is, in my opinion, a really good whiskey. And then the cigar is pretty drastically changing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this is one of the scenarios where if you're coming from the whiskey side and you really like this whiskey, but you're like learning the cigar game and Corojo in the beginning, maybe you lit it up and you had a little too much spice for your just preference in the cigar side. This is something that's gonna bring the approachableness to the cigar. It's almost like if you were the exact opposite, right? And you liked cigars, but whiskey was, kind of rough on you, and then you have a whiskey with something like this that has a Cabernet cask, but pulls it down a little bit. It's almost like what it's doing to the cigars. It's pulling it down a little bit, adding a little sweetness to it, and making it approachable. So, yeah, that is what I think about this pairing. It makes me incredibly interested about this next one. I think if I'm gonna go ahead and say this. This is a prediction because I want to make this prediction. This is gonna be above a 9.
Ooh, okay. I like the bold
Early
claim.
prediction.
I like the bold claim. Yeah, and I do just want to say I loved your analogy there. This is almost like the way the cigar tastes after you take a sip of it. For those who speak the whiskey lingo, it basically tastes like this is a cigar with a Cabernet finish. Like that's basically what it makes it taste like. But jumping into pairing number 2, we've got Old Forester 1924. This is a 10-year-old bourbon from Old Forester, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey to be specific. And if I'm not mistaken, okay, so each expression in the Old Forester lineup has a date associated with it. So I'm going to read the little description because it's kind of a fun story that goes with it. So Old Forester, for those who don't know, is owned by Brown Forman. So that's going to be important to this description. In 1924, Owsley Brown took barrels of whiskey with different mash bills to a warehouse on Howard Street in Louisville, Kentucky, and bottled them as Old Forester. This 10-year-old expression honors the 100th anniversary of this occasion because it's 1924. We are now in 2024. And so, okay, this whiskey, they have a little bit more on the back, actually. I love reading these little fun facts. Hopefully you guys do too. This whiskey is distilled by us only, and we are responsible for its richness and fine quality. Its elegant flavor is solely due to the fineness developed with care. There is nothing better in the market. Okay, that was kind of a marketing paragraph there, but I just love the little fun facts. So that's what this is. Once again, 10 years old, and quite I would say a unique flavor, which I think is what Adam likes so much about it. I'm going to let you go ahead and talk while I get started. Oh, no. All right. It looks like you're either loving it or hating it. I couldn't tell. All I know is you had a very surprised expression.
Yeah, I hadn't had the whiskey in a while because for those of you that may not know, like I didn't when I accidentally happened upon this bottle, I didn't know it was super rare. Apparently, this is one of the highest allocated bottles in the U.S. right now. So, is that correct still, Chris?
I think it's so hard for me to say because Ohio is bad at getting anything rare, but I can say in Ohio I can't get this, so I'll say that much.
Okay, well I do know then that it is.
Yeah.
Because for those of you that don't know, John, the man behind the camera, the editor, he's a big whiskey guy as well, and he was very jealous that I got this, so he wanted a little taste. So
yeah.
I can tell you that this is highly allocated whiskey, which if you don't know what allocation means, like me about 2 years ago, it
Mhm.
means it's just really rare. That's pretty much what it is. And it means if you go into a whiskey store, you have to kind of sometimes ask what's allocated, what's not. They may have something in the back for you, right, Chris?
In some states, not in Ohio, but yes, what you're saying is
Okay.
correct in a lot of states.
I'm just, yeah, this is a very whiskey noob way of saying this is a rare whiskey.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put that out there. But I love it's almost like it is finished to me. This is what I love about this whiskey. It
Hmm.
almost, like, it feels like it has the sweetness out of that bourbon is something that I don't think I've ever had out of a non-finished whiskey. And
Hmm.
that's why I was excited. That's why I made my prediction because the American single malt Cabernet cask from Virginia Distilling Company, I was like, okay, Cabernet cask finish feels like this has maybe like a more port finish almost. The 1924, if it was to be, a finish. And I was
Hmm.
like, something out of that sweetness is going to play with the cigar. Bingo. I think you get more of the earthy tones of the cigar. You get more
Yes.
cigar-y flavor out of it, but almost like at the same time, the sweetness is also even more elevated than what we got out of the Cabernet cask because I got just an explosion of flavor when I went from the 1924 Old Forester to the CLE Corojo. But
Hmm.
going back is going to be interesting because I have not done that yet. So I've got to see if this is antagonistic or complementary. I don't think it's going to be ultra.
Yeah. So, just to speak to what you said about the whiskey too, especially for those who are wondering, is this worth the money? Is this a good whiskey? Why is this so rare? So I will say I haven't sat down and picked it apart enough to give a definitive is this worth the money? Because if you follow me, you know I take that like really seriously. But what I will say is it's a very, very, very good bourbon, 100%. It's very expensive though too, which is why I'm not 100% sure. But what I want to say is what you're saying about it almost tasting finished is really strange. Not what you're saying is strange, but it's a strange aspect of this whiskey. It's like I think what's happening with this Old Forester 1924 is they did a weird thing where somehow they got the mash bill to play really well with how old it is. Because you get this depth of the oak where it almost tastes double oaked because it's 10 years old. But then the mash bill, whatever they did, the way it interacted with the oak was super sweet. And this can be more than just the mash bill. This can also be where it's stored in a warehouse. This can be how it's distilled, what proof you're getting it off the still at. All those things play a factor. But they did something really nice, whether it was on purpose or not, where you get that oaky depth and you still get this bright, sweet flavor that you're referring to as almost tasting like it's finished. And I totally agree. I think what's happening with the cigar is the depth of the oaky flavor that I mentioned kind of comes through in those earthy tones. And now, like what I was saying, tasted like a molasses cookie to me is starting to taste more like a brownie, like more in the realm of chocolate, earth, those sorts of things, and less in the realm of like the light sweet. So definitely an interesting interaction. I also haven't, I've gone back and forth, but not enough to pay attention to the whiskey. I will say, at least in my experience so far, the change to the cigar is more obvious, but there could be something going on with the whiskey. So I got to jump in and give that a taste as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what it's doing to the whiskey because it definitely, I think the spice is bringing out more of a double oaked sort of vibe out of the whiskey, which is interesting because it's almost like transferring the Corojo from the CLE Corojo is going over to the whiskey to make it like a double oaked, and then the sweetness that's hidden in the Old Forester 1924 is transferring over to the CLE Corojo and making it taste a little bit more sweet. It's almost like they're trading the beautiful parts of themselves to bring together an interesting pairing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a weird thing because I don't know if they're gelling. Does that make sense? Like
Mm-hmm.
they are transfer like they're both changing, but I don't know if they're gelling, which is a weird. I don't know if maybe I'm just super focused on it because I'm like, is this a nine? I guessed it was a nine. It's got to be a nine, right? I gotta.
Right.
I'm trying to just pull it off, but it's a really interesting pairing, and this is one. we talk about the beginners a lot. For those of you out there that may not be beginners in either realm, this is probably going to pique your interest. This is going to be one where you go, huh, you're going to have some fun with this one. If you can find this Old Forester 1924, the CLE Corojo is out there. Like, and in case you can't find it, we do have 3-packs available on shopdreamercigars.com. Limited 3-packs, so they go very quickly. But it's a interesting pairing, to say the least. And I'm slightly distracted because I'm also like side-eyeing this ash right here that is nearly perfect. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this ash. Chris, you don't have to show us your ash, man. You don't have to do it.
Hey, man.
I know you're embarrassed about your ash. You haven't hit squats in a while.
Right. I've been working on my lighting technique, so check it out.
But if Chris has an ash, guys, you should know it's good construction.
Yeah, good point. Good point. If I lit it on camera and it's got a good burn line, then they're doing a good job.
No, you're getting better at it. No, I'll give you credit, but
I'm working on it. No, I agree with most of what you said there. The only change I would make to what you said, at least for me, is I think I've noticed this about the way you and I both talk about cigars. And obviously you're more experienced in cigars, so you're probably the one who's correct. But what I call like darker notes, you tend to call sweeter notes. So when I say like the darkness, the depth of the oak comes over to the cigar, you say the sweetness of the whiskey comes over. And I think we're talking about the same thing, whatever that thing is, which, by the way, guys, is a great example of why you should never worry about what other people say about a whiskey review or a cigar review. Just try to get an idea of what they're talking about. And this is one of those instances where we're definitely tasting the same thing, because this is like the third time I've noticed us having that discrepancy, but we're talking about the same type of a flavor. So that's the way, I mean, for me, that's exactly how that's working. And I totally agree with you that a more experienced person is going to love this pairing, because there's a lot going on, a lot of complexity in the bourbon, a lot of complexity in the cigar. Even like 4 or 5 back and forths into it, I went back to the cigar and I thought, okay, what was that? That was weird. It was like almost just a tiny touch of fruit on the retrohale, like an itty bit. There's a lot here to pull apart for sure between this pairing. Yeah.
The last touch, I think that fruitiness that you're saying is on the retrohale is the sweetness that I may be referencing.
That could be.
You know, the sugariness maybe is a better term, but I still think both of these did bring out a dark fruit sweetness combination type thing. In this one, this third one could be in left field. We'll see. It might be a home run to left field, but it might be in left field.
That's what I'm really excited to see, because I have a feeling. Well, I don't want to. Okay, I'm gonna. You staked your. You took your bet. You said this is gonna be a 9. I'm gonna say I have no idea if this is gonna be high rating or not, but I think this is going to be another very fun pairing in a totally different way. So for our third pairing, we've got
no, stop it. That's such a soft guess.
All right,
this is gonna be fun. That's such a soft guess. I'm not letting you get away with that. You got to make it complimentary, ultra. You got to do something that's
Let me get more specific. So I think the 2 pairings so far, the sweetnesses have meshed. I think because this is a rye, this third pairing, we're going to see the spice get cranked up in the cigar, and some of that sweetness is going to fall away. And then the whiskey, I'm wondering if the spice in the cigar is going to tame the spice in the whiskey. There's a more concrete guess as to what's going to happen. All right.
Thank you. Now introduce the whiskey.
May I now introduce the whiskey? Our third pairing today is Hard Truth Distilling's High Road Rye. Sorry about that. I had something in my throat. Okay. Our third pairing today.
It's called bullshit.
Yeah. All right. I get it. I see how it is. I don't think that last one was a 9. I'm just going to say it. I think you were wrong. So our third pairing is Hard Truth Distilling's High Road Rye. So this is their straight rye whiskey. It is a sweet mashed rye whiskey, which we're going to learn what that means here at the end. And it is 93 proof. Our first whiskey was 93 proof. Our second one was 100 proof, 10 years old. And now this one is 93 proof once again. And once again, this is a rye whiskey. So far we've had our main grain in the first one was barley. Our main grain in the second one was corn. And now our main grain is rye. So we're hitting 3 very prominent, very different grains, which probably is going to give us 3 pretty different tastes.
Okay, so I'm going to give just a little synopsis for those of you that didn't see me on the audio or on the visual version and just aren't on the visual version, you're on the audio version. I took a taste and it completely threw me off. And I forgot my water, so I went back to the water, and I'm about to go back to the whiskey, but that might have been that flavor again. This may be one of the things that I take back. That was the easiest, softest rye I have ever had.
I am so with you. And I love Hard Truth. I don't think without the cigar, this rye does taste that way 100%. I think it tastes like a rye. You feel the rye. With the cigar, this is like sweet, syrupy, a little bit of a white sugar flavor. And I was 180 degrees off of what happened to the cigar. I feel like it got darker. It got a little bit sweeter and more mellow and even a little bit more approachable. Are these two making each other more approachable? I feel like that's what's happening.
I think you might be right on that, and I think it's really weird. Like this Hard Truth sweet mash high road rye, the Hard Truth sweet mash high road try saying that 5 times fast.
100%.
High road rye. But yeah, this Hard Truth sweet mash high road rye. That is tough to say. Mm-hmm. See, and you make fun of me for cigar stuff. But anyway,
to be fair, you could leave the sweet mash off. You could just say the high road rye, the Hard Truth high road rye. High road rye is hard by itself.
High road rye. Rye.
That's tough.
Yeah. But anyways, with the CLE Corojo here is a pairing. I agree that is like mellowing out both of them, but it's also teetering on an ultra pairing. The sweetness.
The way the whiskey tastes, you think?
I think both. I haven't had this whiskey enough by itself, but I know there is a flavor. The sweetness that's coming out of this cigar when we first lit it up is not like you could tell maybe a little. And this isn't as we've had one ultra pairing. This isn't that, but this cigar should not taste this way.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the Cabernet cask and the even made up finish that we think maybe involved in the 1924, this is like even more, which it shouldn't have been, right? Like you said, it's a complete 180 to what you guessed. It should have been spice, boom. Where is this beautiful sweetness? Like this is like a rich bourbon with a double finish in some port cask is what feels like what's going on right now. And it's a wrap.
I'm with you. Listen, guys, pairings are not intuitive. This did the exact opposite of what I thought was going to happen, but I couldn't agree with you more. This is actually a really, really tasty pairing. They're both getting so sweet. The Hard Truth High Road Rye is now, instead of being traditional rye flavors, it's like extra sweet, a little bit syrupy, even a little bit of a fruitiness to it. And then the CLE Corojo, instead of the spiciness being amped up like I thought it would, it's toned down. It's sweet. It's got like a milk chocolatey flavor with a little bit of a fruitiness to it. Just all around a sweet, relaxed pairing. So 100%, if you are the type of person who's like, ryes are a little bit too aggressive for me, but you like cigars, try them with the CLE Corojo. If you have another Corojo, maybe try that. Try the High Road Rye with it, and it is so much sweeter, so much more approachable. But what I love is there's still some of the aspects of the rye that you like. There's still some of the things that you want to see from a rye in here, like the light sweet flavors, the little bit of a black pepper kick to it. But it's just all around more approachable and really tasty. I don't know if you're watching the video version, I was going back and forth like crazy there for a second because it is a sweet and tasty pairing.
Yeah, and I think this is a great intermediate pairing
Mm-hmm.
because it's an intermediate cigar, it's an intermediate whiskey. I think, we've landed, of course, again, we said it earlier, a bunch on the beginner side because that's what, we want to help a lot of beginners out there. If you're aficionados and experts in both, great. But we do want to help a lot of beginners because you guys that are experts out there started at one point and learned at one point, and here's where we're trying to bring more people with you so you don't have to drink and smoke alone. But this
Mm-hmm.
is the exact middle, in my opinion. I don't know if we've ever targeted like you're starting to figure this out. Maybe you've been with us. If you have been in the Perfect Pairing Club since March, you've been with us. You've been learning. This is probably where you're hopefully going boom, double thumbs up, and you're gonna just like have this rocket ship behind you. I didn't have it behind me, but you're just gonna be super excited about this pairing because this is the introduction into the next level of pairings. I think it gels well. You're going to be able to understand the nuances in both, why they're happening. Yeah, I mean, this one, I was wrong on it too. I tried to, just pull some guess out of you, but I mean, maybe you should have said a nine. I don't know.
I don't want to reveal anything here, but I wish I had called that.
You
I wish I
you
had
weren't
called
ballsy
that.
enough. Yeah, sometimes it happens. You're not ballsy enough.
Yeah, that's
And,
what it was.
just kidding. This is the
I'm kind
Give
of
Chris
glad I
Shit
wasn't because I
podcast.
was clearly it is, yeah. But I was completely opposite about what happened. So it's probably a good thing I wasn't more ballsy with my prediction, or I would have just been more wrong. But I like that. So here's the thing, guys. We've been doing this for like 6 months now. So this is like 26, right? So this is like half a year of cigars that we've done with 3 pairings each. And we still, or at least I still guessed the exact opposite of what was going to happen. And that just goes to show how difficult it is to learn how to pair things together. Even when you think you know what you're doing, every once in a while you just get a complete curveball.
100%. I don't know, and I hope, here's what I'll say to that. I hope I'm never 100% right on my pairings. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the beauty of pairings. I think that's why we wanted to start this in the beginning to sure unsheath the curtain a little bit and let everybody see that not all cigars pair with all whiskeys, right? That's like
Mm-hmm.
the 101 of what we wanted to present, but also there's so many different options. There's so many different preferences. You and I have disagreed so many different times on, it was my favorite and it was your least favorite and all of this sort of stuff and the rankings and ratings and all of that. And I think this is, again, yeah, the greatest representation that we've had of you don't know until you try it. So you know what? Try it. And then go to the Discord and let everybody else know so they don't have to spend their money on a bad pairing. Or they can spend their money on what they know is at least probably going to be a great night. That's the other that's
Yeah.
the other piece of this is everybody's gone out there to a cigar lounge or just had cigars with buddies and had a choice of a couple of different whiskeys and they don't know what they're going to do or what the certain pairing should be. This is at least hopefully a little help for you guys to point you in the right direction. Or, maybe you try this pairing and you're like, oh, that didn't work. And then, at
Mm-hmm.
least you guys got something to talk about that Chris and Adam are full of shit.
Yep. And listen, that's like the beauty of pairings. If you're a whiskey guy and you know what to expect most of the time now, you need to buy these super unique, crazy whiskeys in order to have something that actually makes you think, oh, what's going on here? The beauty of that is if you're getting used to the whiskeys that you're drinking and you just buy a cigar, this little CLE Corojo Robusto that we have today, any cigar, but I'm just using this as an example. And then you pair it with those same whiskeys that you're used to tasting. You know what they taste like. They're not surprising to you anymore. Suddenly, everything is super surprising again. And that's what's so much fun about pairings, because as somebody who reviews, I don't even know how many whiskeys per year, I could not even begin to guess. Every once in a while, I'm like, yep, this tastes exactly like what I would think by reading the label. But then you throw a cigar with it, and it's like a whole new thing. It's like, what is going on here? This is not what I expected. And it's a lot of fun. So that's my little plug just for pairings in general. If you're not listening to the podcast, if you're not in the Perfect Pairing Club, whatever, if you are getting bored with just cigars or just whiskey or just coffee or whatever you want to pair with, pairings are fun for that reason. They're like a bottomless pit of new experiences is basically the way I would put it.
Yep. 100% agreed with that. 100% agree. I'm going to do a quick plug to give you a little time because I am ready for my rankings.
All right.
If you guys are not introduced into this already, if you guys are listening this far and you have, maybe this is your first podcast and you decided to listen all the way through, but the other piece might be you've been listening all the way through all along and you haven't joined the Perfect Pairing Club. And I hope you do, just so you guys can experience these pairings with us. It's much more fun when there's a community behind it. We do give you guys 10% off every single month your subscription at 10% off with the code PPP10 at shopdreamercigars.com. You can go over there, sign up for the Perfect Pairing Clubs. You get 4 to 5 cigars a month straight to your door. But we have added and kept, by the way, the incredible welcome kit that's pretty much what we're calling it at this point, where if you join, you get the whiskey drams that Chris and I are drinking out of today that have member on it and the Perfect Pairing Club logo. You're also getting 4 previous cigars of the week on top of course, the next month's subscription. So you're going to be able to experience some of the things you may have heard in these podcasts and pair those with whatever you want to. And then on top of that, the kind of cherry on top is you're going to get 2 cigars that have your initials on it and your last name, and it says Perfect Pairing Club member. So how many people in the world have their own cigar that has their own last name on it? Nobody does besides like Rocky Patel, Carlito Fuente, and all those guys. So you're going to be in an elite club there, but that is my little plug. Chris, are you ready for the rankings?
I think I am. This was a good one. I'm excited about these rankings. I'll go ahead and say my 3 in order, and then we'll just go from there. I think we might have some changes, some discrepancies between the two of us. So with the CLE Corojo Robusto, I had the Hard Truth High Road Rye at number 1. I had the Virginia Distilling Company Cabernet Cask Finish at number 2, and then I had Old Forester 1924 at number 3. And let me tell you, these margins are razor thin, so don't get ahead of yourself till you hear my actual ratings.
Okay, well, we definitely have a little discrepancy, but not too much. At number 1 with the CLE Corojo, I do have the Hard Truth High Road Rye. And then at number 2, I've got the Old Forester 1924. That one, for me, those two were razor thin margin. And then at number 3, I do have the American Single Malt from Virginia Distilling Company with their Cabernet cask.
And we'll say the corny line once again, guys. The whatever we had in 3rd place is not in last. It is in 3rd. The Olympics are going on as we're recording this, and they didn't get last place. They got the bronze medal for sure.
Yeah, they're helping their country a little boost up there for sure.
Absolutely. Yep. So I'll start off with, let's do, since we had the same number 1, the Hard Truth High Road Rye with the CLE Corojo, I had at a 9.2.
I had with the CLE Corojo, I had the Hard Truth High Road Rye, the Sweet Mash High Road Rye, I should mention, because I can say it now. Yeah. I had a 9.5.
9.5, dude. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was teetering on going even higher. This is one where the 3 pairings were so good that I was like, do I leave more room? Maybe I do. So that's why I left a little bit of room there. But once again, guys, over a 9 is like don't even think about it. Try it. Do not even worry about it. Don't worry about what else is on your shelf. I mean, of course you can try multiple, but try this pairing. That is the standard when it comes to a 9. Now, I'll jump to my 3rd place since it's your 2nd place. So in 3rd place, I had Old Forester 1924. And with the CLE Corojo Robusto, I had it at an 8.2, which is still a very high ranking.
I gotta say, this is might be the first time with the CLE Corojo and the Old Forester 1924. I had a 9.
9. Okay.
I had two nines here. I mean,
I think you just
I
didn't want to be wrong.
well, no, actually, I actually just forgot. I did not even do that on purpose.
Uh-huh.
I I changed it. I had an 8.8, but you kept talking about the 9 and I was like, "No, I would never be mad if I was smoking the CLE Corojo. Here's I'm going to take a pause here for a second. If I was smoking the CLE Corojo Robusto at a lounge, I had just had first drink, whatever. I decided to pick the drink first, and it was whatever. And then I was looking through, the entire bar selection, and I saw the Old Forester 1924. I wouldn't blink. I would do it. And then if I was drinking that and I was enjoying it, and then if I saw the Hard Truth Sweet Mash High Road Rye, I would not be upset.
Yeah.
That's why I chose it because I wouldn't be like, "Dang, I should have had that." I
Okay.
wouldn't I don't think there's anything else. I don't think there's anything that would make me go, "Damn, I missed out."
Okay, that's a fair way to rate that. I personally, just because of the High Road Rye, I loved it so much, I would feel that way, and that's why I'm in the 8s. But hear me out. The 8s, for those listening who don't know our rating system, 8 is still, I'm not really worried about what else is on the shelf. I know I'm happy with an 8. Now, if I was doing the same thing Adam just said, and then I saw the High Road Rye, personally, I'd be like, oh, well, that would have been even better with this. But 8 still means I'm probably not even looking at what else is on the shelf because I'm like, oh, cool, they had 1924. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm going with. And then for number 3 for you, number 2 for me, razor thin margin. I had the Virginia Distilling Company Cabernet Cask with the CLE Corojo at a 8.3, which is once again still a very high rating.
I had the CLE Corojo with the Virginia Distilling Company American Single Malt Cabernet Cask at a 7.7. I
Seven,
think
seven. I'm surprised by that. I'm not gonna lie.
I there was a bite to it that maybe was just my whiskey preference. And I think that's probably what is pulling that one down below an 8.
That's fair.
But it is definitely a consideration. I almost wish we would have done this in the opposite direction because I could have explained myself better. But because I found two things that were 9 and above. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
nah. I got plenty of 8s here with the CLE Corojo. I think there is going to be a lot of great pairings with this cigar.
That's a fair point. And I also want to point out that I'm pretty sure there have been episodes where none of them have been as high as a 7.7. So that's still a very high rating. Like, that's still a great rating to have.
Yes.
Last thing, like a part 2 to my noob review that I wanted to mention is as I'm getting into the second, third, not quite to the third of this cigar yet, I want to sing its praises a little bit. I'm still really enjoying it. I think this is right in my palate preference type of range. A little bit higher spice than what I've said before with like the night shift that I had. But I'm really liking the black pepper is really starting to come out, but it's like a cracked pepper. It's not like really harsh. It's like that nice, fresh, cracked pepper flavor that's really bringing like a brightness and like a fun to the cigar. So I just want to make sure I said that because it has changed a little bit as we've gotten farther into it.
I would agree with that. I think it's what I've referenced before as the like the salad pepper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What just blow my mind with this sweet mash. I just got to know.
All right, I'll blow your mind. I don't know if it'll blow your mind or not. We'll see. So, in order to understand what sweet mash is, we have to understand what sour mash is. Have you heard sour mash, and do you know what it is?
I've heard of it. Don't know what it is.
Okay, so sour mash is extremely, extremely, extremely common in practice. I would say most bourbons, if I'm not mistaken, are sour mash bourbons. So what it means is it's like, if anybody listening knows what Amish friendship bread is, it's like that. Amish friendship, Adam does not, based on his face. So, okay, I'll start by describing.
I got the Amish beard.
Yeah, there you go. You should know this. You should know. Okay, I'll start there, and then just bear with me here. Amish friendship bread is a bread that you make, and it ferments, actually, and then you cook it, and it's really good, but you keep a little bit of the batter, and then you can give it to other people, and they can use it to kick off fermentation of their Amish friendship bread. Sour mash whiskey means that you take the mash, which is the blend of all of the grains, you ferment it to create basically a weak beer known as distiller's beer. You ferment it, and then you put it in your distiller, or in your still. Now, with sour mash, you keep a little bit of that spent mash, that mash that you're done with, and you use it to kickstart your next round of mash. So that's sour mash, and it's very common. Sweet mash means you don't do that. It means every mash is a brand new batch of mash. You're not using any of your old mash as a starter for your next mash.
Wow. I actually did learn a lot just then.
Thank you. That's why I wanted to start all the way back at the Amish friendship, Brett, because I was like, this is it's kind of a confusing thing if you're not familiar with fermentation and how all that works. So
it really is
coherent.
Yeah. Well, in case you didn't listen this far into the episode, Chris, thank you. I learned something today, and now I'm a little less of a whiskey noob. So appreciate that info.
That's what I'm here for.
But I mean, I can't sing the praises enough of this CLE Corojo as well, because I've been moving this band down just so I could show it to everybody. But this is my third ash, and it is literally still impeccably. You guys can see probably on the video version here that vein going all the way through that ash there. Holy crap, well constructed, great smoke, great pairing cigar. Can't sing their praises enough. I think I may even go try a fourth pairing here in a second. So, Chris, I'm just going to go ahead and cheers you, man.
Hey, cheers.
Cheers.